Is sugar fueling your marathon training or sabotaging it? In this episode, we break down the truth about sugar endurance and performance. Should you rely on it for energy or is it holding you back? Tune in to find out how to train smarter, feel better, and run stronger.
Mm, that's a great one. Sugar, we love it. We want it. We always crave it. But is it really helping us achieve the goals we want to achieve in our fitness, our running, and how we balance our nutrition through our lives? Stay tuned.
Hey guys, welcome to our podcast again, the Running Your Best Life, where we give you tips such as this today and to help you become healthier and live a better life. My name is Victor Vizcaino. I'm your host, and my co host is Adele. Welcome, guys.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see everybody again. And always a pleasure to see you, Victor. Always.
Always a pleasure to see you. So, we're going to discuss sugars and its effect on running. And one of the things that Adele and I were talking about is how it's different when you're exercising. The From my understanding, the sugars when we're running, it doesn't need as much insulin, or our bodies don't have to produce as much insulin to process the sugars. Therefore, we're able to consume sugars for energy, for our glycogen, to run a better race or even just to train.
And
Mm,
I think that's a great point to make because a lot of people will have processed sugars compared to the raw sugars in their regular diets, not necessarily just to prepare for their fitness or their running. And you have to really watch the effects of what the sugar does to your body when you're planning to really exaggerate your the output of your energy, right? And I think that's a great point, Victor, because it's not a bad thing to have sugar because sugar is a great energy source, as you and I both know, because we've got so many long term endurance events behind us in our history.
absolutely.
I think the biggest thing about understanding the point you're making is sugar can be a great energy source. You have to use it wisely. And I think
That's
that's what we
absolutely
really
right.
want people learn today.
Yes. And with the acknowledgement that everybody is different, so it does take a little bit of experimentation,
Yeah.
but sugar is needed, especially like endurance sports such as marathons. I
Mhm.
run a numerous of marathons, and my go to are usually the gels. About
Mm.
every 45 minutes, I take on a gel, and that keeps my sugars pretty well regulated. Mm,
I have a certain type that I've used. And when you say experimentation, there's two different types I've used over all the years. And I experimented with several, like you're saying. I think the biggest thing is to make our viewers realize is don't go to your race and try something new.
yes, and that's just not in sugars or nutrition. That's with everything.
Exactly. It's like putting
Don't
on a
try
brand
anything
new
new.
pair of shoes that you've never laced up and try to run 26 miles. You're going to hurt your feet. It's the same thing with your body. If you really want to be successful, use these experimental times of training when you're in your training miles, walking, running, if you're cross training. Watch your time and watch how much energy you're expending because the key is going to be how your body is spending your inside energy, stuff you already have in there from your basic nutrition, your basic diet. Your sugar is a source of your energy. So, in a lot of your gel packs, a lot of your drinks, a lot of your powders that you can add to your water that you might be carrying with you on your fitness event and your training, you want to use good sugar as an energy source because you need to keep that carbohydrate, that glycogen, you want to keep all that balance. But don't go and try something in a race that you haven't tried already. You don't know how it will affect your digestion, your gut issues, your hydration issues. If you're on a training run, you can stop and go home if you start to have a reaction to something that you have. And I'll give you an example, and I think Victor probably has one too. There's a certain ingredient in certain things that I know I don't want to ingest. And especially if I'm running, riding, cycling, swimming, whatever it is, when I was playing a lot of competitive tennis, there's certain bars, there's certain gel packs, and it's maltodextrin. I have found over many, many years of experimenting, if maltodextrin is one of the first ingredients listed on that pack of nutrition that I use, and it is in a lot of things. If it's one of the first three, it's at a higher level of concentration. It's going to affect my gut. I don't want that feeling when I'm running,
Yeah, no,
cycling,
that's
swimming.
true.
So what I do is look at what's in a product if I'm going to try a new one. If I see maltodextrin, and it is in a lot of things, it's just I know that that's one thing that does bother me. It's just like
Okay,
somebody who has the gluten sensitivity, right? Try not
right.
to ingest it. So,
Or
yeah,
allergies as well.
yes, yes, or some food allergies. Because when you're paying attention in your regular diet or your regular nutrition, and you are an endurance athlete, you're going to look at that stuff as well because the way you're eating is creating your base energy source, correct? So you want to
Right.
get the right carbohydrates, you want to get the right veggies, all the right fruits, you want to build your potassium. And we'll address this a little bit later, but getting that right sugar is the way you're getting it in your basic nutrition every day. You don't want to start taking something different when you're exaggerating the expenditure of your energy. Like when I'm running my intervals today, I'm running a 1 mile warm up, I'm running 4 miles with intervals on a track. I'm cooling down another mile. What's happening is you're exaggerating how much you're using at any given time. You have to rebuild it. And if you're not doing the right stuff, you're gonna feel really bad when you're finished. Nobody
Yes.
wants that.
The other thing a lot of marathoners talk about is carb loading.
Yes.
And in that case, I like to pick my carbs, the more healthy carbs. For example, before a run, one way to avoid some of the crashes is to stick to simple carbs with protein
Mhm. Right.
before your workout or before the race, such as eating a half of a banana with almond butter about 30 minutes to 60 minutes before the race or before
Hmm.
the run.
And that's a good one. And that's good potassium that you need that helps keep things in a balance as well.
Yes, absolutely. Mm.
One of the other things that I think we could bring up right now too is you do want to have a carbohydrate base because that's your energy source. That's where your healthy sugars are. So with your banana, and what was the other thing with a little bit of almond butter, the
Right.
you know
And whole wheat bread,
the
maybe.
whole wheat bread. A lot of people would like a bagel type of consistency, a roll or piece of bread or even a bagel, some kind of little bar. Just watch what you're putting on top of it. The almond butter is fantastic. A little peanut butter, anything that's got that extra protein in it, you want to keep that protein base as well. Proteins is your slowest digested nutrient. And the reason I'm bringing that point up is as athletes, and even in the basic nutrition plan now that people talk about, protein is a recovery nutrient, it is a strength nutrient, it is a brain enhancer. Everything that protein does for you is very, very good if you do it in the right amounts before you use it all up. And
Yes.
if you get that almond butter or that peanut butter or another source of your protein with your potassium and your carbohydrates, you are giving yourself a really, really good base to go out for a long fitness event.
Yes. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is also just in general nutrition and every day. And I'm not talking about the training or consuming sugar while training. I'm talking about, your breakfast, lunch, and dinners.
Right.
And I learned this from the sugar goddess, and she had a process, a procedure of how to eat it, in which order to eat your food. And the way she put it is having your vegetables first,
Hmm.
then your protein, then your carbs, and lastly, if you are going to have dessert, should be the last thing you do, which is pretty common for people to wait for
Right.
dessert till the end.
Right.
But but the most important is having the vegetables first because that's unusual, especially when you go eating out at a restaurant. I noticed that, and a lot of restaurants they serve bread. The first thing
Mhm.
they bring to you is bread, and that's not the order you want to do it to keep your sugar levels steady.
Do
Mm.
you know why restaurants bring bread?
So you eat more probably.
Because I've eaten baskets and baskets of bread, and I love to dip it in that little oil. Oh, I love it, love it. I don't do that much anymore because if you start to load up on your bread or any kind of appetizer type crackers or even something you might order, you are not going to eat all of the things that are on your plate. So that allows a restaurant to do portion control, which also relates back to all of their product and inventory and cost effectiveness and all that. So the bread actually fills you up a little bit. They can control the portions that they serve to their diners, their guests, and not overload it. So there's a very delicate balance in that. But the beauty of it is that the bread fills you up, a lot of butter, a lot of oil. Watch what you're eating because you do want those vegetables first. A lot of people eat their salads first, and that's a lot of really good greens, and that helps us quite a bit in digesting the next item on your meal plan.
Yes, and especially when it as it relates to sugar
Yes,
processing.
yes, yes.
Yeah, the way the sugar goddess, I'm referring to her. I forgot her
Mhm.
name, but the way she says it is that yes, the it helps regulate the sugars better. Some for our system works better when we eat them in that order.
Right, right,
It
right,
keeps that, and that's important for athletes because you're the more constant you have your sugars, the more energy, motivation, mental clarity you're going to have to go out and do your workouts.
right,
Mm, the
right.
more you experience sugar spikes and sugar crashes, the less energy you're usually going to experience, and it's
Yes.
just a matter of creating those good habits.
One of
Mm.
the biggest things that I think we as runners and slash just athletes in general that do endurance type sports, and I want to be clear when I say endurance, swimmers, cyclists, gymnasts, anybody who is baseball players, you look at them as potentially being quieter on the baseball field. A football player, they're sitting on the side if they're on defense and they're not on the field because offense is. What you have to realize is it's not just the quieter part of your fitness event. You're still engaged mentally, physically, emotionally. You're watching to see, okay, it's my turn to jump in. I'm gonna swim my 100-meter run, my 100-meter freestyle. I'm on the back end. I've still got to pay attention. When am I doing my backstroke? When you're a gymnast, you're doing your different events. All of a sudden, you get that time to rest. Then you're going from the beam. Then you're going to your floor exercises. Same thing in any event of fitness. Watch how you're doing that in between time when it's downtime. What are you drinking? What are you ingesting? What are you eating to keep your sugars balanced to give you that energy boost? All of that is very, very conscientious and intentional. And when Victor describes the pattern on how to eat to best give yourself your energy sources, it's also relating to how your digestion and your body processes all those new things you're putting into it. And I think one of the most important things you have to realize is your veggies aren't the highest calorie consumed. Your carbohydrates are going to have a fair amount of calories, but they're quickly digested. You get to your proteins, which is really the base of slowing down that metabolism to get all those really good benefits from everything you've now put into your body, right?
Yeah,
So that's the
absolutely.
pattern that Victor's describing to you.
Yes. And remember, it's vegetables, protein, carbs,
Right,
and dessert.
right. I had it
And
backwards.
well, just the protein and the carbs, I noticed. But yeah, pro-
Right, right. Because
protein
you want
first,
the
carbs third.
carbs will start burning up the protein. I had it. Sorry, y'all. I had it backwards. Sorry.
It's
I'm thinking
okay.
of all that bread and salad that I used to like.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah.
it's difficult. I found it even this morning. It's like, okay, I want to have um, practice what you preach, and I'm at
Mhm.
my mom's house, and I'm like, okay, what can I have for breakfast? And I'm digging, trying to find the vegetable first. And there's not too many vegetables that are appealing for breakfast.
Right.
But I don't know if you ever had chayote. Have you ever? And it's kind of like a squash. And I forgot
Okay, okay,
the.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a weird vegetable. I found my mom had one of those, so I zapped it in the microwave. I had that. What else did I? I had a half avocado and then eggs,
That's
and that was
pretty
pretty
good.
much it. That was
That's
good. I
pretty
thought,
good.
okay, I got my vegetable, and I've got my protein. And I actually didn't have. I had. Oh, and then I went for a run, and before I run, I had half of a protein bar, which has quite a bit of carbs as well.
Right. Well, I'm so glad Victor brought up the idea of a protein bar or some kind of fitness bar. Let's just be general about it. Look at the ingredients, y'all. Look at the ingredients. I follow a certain line of nutritional products and supplements. Okay. Victor has a certain types of things he likes to do as well. We have learned what works for us. Okay. As we mentioned before, the experimentation is important. But the most important thing that you want to realize what works, what keeps the body balanced, and what is going to help you achieve that good balance when you're out there running. I, for one, don't usually choose an avocado when I'm starting my day. I usually have an immunity tea. I have a little bit of aminos. When I'm getting close to my fitness event, run, bike, swim, whatever it is, walking, whatever it is for that day, I have a certain two or three types of protein energy fitness bars that I like to use. Some of them are a little bit more on the snack level if I'm not going to be exerting that much energy through that particular fitness event, if it's a recovery day, but I need a base so that I don't get tired, I don't get hungry, I don't get lose my focus because my sugar is dropping low. But in the protein bars, I also know if you look at the balance of protein grams, look at the carbohydrates, the sugars, and the other ingredients and the balance they have nutritionally, some of them have too much sugar for you. And your body is going to have a hard time processing that. Look at the protein first, follow with your other ingredients, and make sure that you're not overdoing what you're ingesting. Okay, because you
Yes.
want to have that nice comfortable feeling of starting to run or a walk or a swim, not that bloated heavy feeling. So that's important.
I was going to ask you this, Adele. Have you heard about consuming vinegar before your
um
food, a tablespoon of vinegar? Because that's something that the sugar goddess had
okay,
recommended.
okay, I'm not very up to date on what the vinegar benefits will be. I just know that vinegar is used sometimes as a cleanser
Okay.
and a processor. So
Oh, so
what are
maybe
some
that's
of
what.
your suggestions?
That was one of them.
Okay,
Having a tablespoon before your meal of vinegar will help regulate the sugars. If it's
okay.
something I tried once and then it's like, that's a tough one. I don't like that. Oh, there's also like cider vinegar. I
Like apple cider vinegar or something like that.
Yes, and
Yep,
I
that has.
had heard it for weight loss, having that thing. So maybe there's a correlation because of how it helps you regulate your sugars and it helps people lose weight. I don't know. I just know that it's been recommended.
Well,
And
I know when we were playing, when I was playing a lot of competitive tennis, I used to, and you'll see it on the your racket sports a lot because usually it's in somebody's bag on the side. Is pickle juice, and pickle juice helps with
okay,
cramping. So vinegar
yes.
obviously has some other benefits. I had tried the apple cider vinegar years and years ago. I think the biggest thing for me is it wasn't a necessity for me to add to what I was already doing to maintain
Yeah.
my
It
nutrition
would.
balance. But I will share something with you in regard to that comment is I have had hypoglycemia since 17. So y'all, 50 years, right? 50 years is when I was diagnosed with it. Diabetes runs in my family. Hypoglycemia is low blood sugar. And I'm chronic. I mean, to this day, it's a chronic concern of mine because I know how to balance it now. I know how to not experience the symptoms of low blood sugar. I also know that diabetes runs in the last several generations of my family, so I'm protecting myself to not go into the more diabetic type of symptoms and diabetic state. And right now at 67, I'm not, but I do watch the sugar balances very, very carefully. I shared this with Victor a little earlier, and it takes a lot of practice to make sure that you're keeping that sugar balanced. And there's a reason I'm sharing this with you to kind of piggyback on the other points we've been sharing with y'all. Keeping the balance keeps you performing at the level you want to perform, right? But it's also great for your body to recover if it doesn't have to work that much harder, right?
Right, that's right. It's you don't want to overload on sugar. You don't want to overload on anything that makes your body have to spend more energy than it has to. It's already going to work hard. You just need the proper amounts and
Right.
keep a steady leveled sugar
Well,
in
the
your
other, the
bloodstream.
right. The other thing too is when you're watching, and they go hand in hand. When you're watching the sugar intake that you have, the performance on your running can go two different ways. One, that energy boost is going to, whoa, I'm going to fly through these couple of miles. Then all of a sudden, you will have that, what we call, and Victor, I think
The
you can
crash.
agree with me, the crash, right? You're
Yes,
going to have the crash. Have you ever felt that way during a run or an event?
absolutely.
Okay.
Especially my first marathon, it was pretty obvious. You hit that wall right around mile 18, and you think it's not. I thought I was going to have to walk for the rest of it, but
Hmm.
they did. They were handing out the candies, jelly
Right,
beans, and
right,
I've
right.
had jelly beans before during the practice, so I took some and felt better and continued. Got a little bit of recharge.
Yeah, yeah, because it's
Mhm.
a quick sugar. It's a quick sugar in your system.
Yes, I was very inexperienced back then, so I think I definitely would overconsume the sugars to try to, uh, yeah, negate the effects of starting to run out of energy. And
Right.
there's so many things that play into that, or like overexerting myself, running through a lot of my reserves of
Mhm.
carbohydrates and glycogen, and then you overconsume, and that's where you get those spikes and crashes.
The other thing that can happen too, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people will realize, is when you have an excessive amount of sugar in your system, it does lead to gastro type problems too. Maybe
Yeah,
diarrhea, maybe some real discomfort with bloating, and the other things that can happen in your digestive tract. But one of the other things that you got to realize too is a lot of heavy sugars can lead to weight gain. It can lead to inflammation, and that also can lead to injury and maybe not help with the repair of an injury. So you really, really, really want to watch how you're getting the sugar into your system and how you're utilizing it. I
absolutely.
shared with Victor when I was running my first couple of marathons. I had a friend of mine who was helping me train. He'd done a couple of marathons, but we were training together for those first two or three. He used to drink Coca Cola. I'm telling you, outright Coca Cola. Somebody along the route would have a basket, and he would have them placed strategically, like the halfway, 10 mile, 15 mile, whatever. And he'd grab a can of Coca Cola and potato chips.
Mhm.
I had no idea what that truly does to my system, but Coca Cola potato chips is not something that I would ingest while I'm running another 10 or 15 miles. So, y'all, I know it works for some people in these ultra marathoners. They've tried it. Don't go out and try it on a 5 mile run, please. That's not what they're doing it for. They're doing it because they know what their bodies can use and what they can process. So please be careful on that one. Coca Cola and
Yes, and
potato chips.
that was going to be actually my next topic is, or just a question to you though. What is the weirdest thing? That was probably one of them is the Coca-Cola, but that you actually seen people handing out at the races.
Well, okay, 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 okay. So you mean people along the sideline, the parade goers?
Yes, or even even some of the volunteers that have
Okay.
booths have had weird stuff, at
with the
least in
race.
my experience.
So I'm going to share a couple of things with you because I'm down in Louisiana. I'm a New Orleans girl. We are in king cake season. It's Mardi Gras. We're in king cake season. So you're going to find king cakes along the route. You're going to find donuts along the route, beer, you know, hard alcohol, as I call it, along the route. Whether this works for you or not, please test it out first. Okay.
Yes, that's
I will
key.
have
That is
I
key.
will have a whole king cake after a marathon. But I think some of the craziest things that I've seen, your basic staples like your fruits, your bananas, your apples, your oranges, all that kind of good stuff, your energy supply packs. I've seen bowls of the Jolly Ranchers, like you were talking about a little bit earlier, lifesavers, things that are quick, like the little jelly type
Yes.
of little jelly beans, quick things that give you a quick sugar rush. And remember, that's just hardcore sugar. Balance it off. Balance it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those things are
And
kind of the craziest things provided by the race volunteers and support. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that just being aware of the quantity that you're taking, because it's so easy, you maybe not thinking straight or you're
Mhm.
focused on stuff, and it's so easy to grab too many of those jelly beans or just not doing it consciously. Yeah, you just like you want to get through. But the caffeine is something that I've always had to be very careful because
Right.
I've overconsumed caffeine. It does give you energy, but it has some really side effect. For me, it was a lot of cramping. I
Right.
attribute it to over caffeinated, and it's also kind of gives you that false sense of it gives you energy that you may put it all out when you're not ready for or not
Right.
holding steady to your pace,
Right. Right. And I
making
agree
your
with you
heart.
totally on that. I think it's all processing. It's how your body's going to process it. And
Yeah.
one of the biggest things is that we can go out after running a marathon and have 9 scoops of gigantic scoops of ice cream. Or me, I love my king cake after I've run a long race. It's kind of my reward for nutritionally preparing to run that marathon, right? I'm not going to have that kind of sugar, but I could potentially eat a whole king cake after a marathon because I figured I've earned it, right? It's one time, once in a lifetime, I'll do it. But one of the biggest things that I think you have to realize is how it does affect your body with that processing, the bloating, the discomfort. Um, yeah, in fact, I just shared with someone not too long ago. They don't really drink much anymore, but they've gone out to run with drinking beer in the morning. In the
Oh
morning,
God.
and I'm talking, beer, regular beer. They're accustomed to drinking it if they're eating it with a meal, but they've tried to drink beer instead of other forms of hydration to get ready to go do a race or a bike ride or something like that. Y'all understand what different products can do to your system. Some things cause you to dehydrate, right?
Yes. Something I were one school of thinking for some people that I've heard often is I have to earn my calories. and, and I thought about that, and especially, well, I thought about that in regards to smoking. Like you see somebody smoking on the side while you're running, it's like you wouldn't use that same logic. Like I have to earn my smoke because
Right.
it actually would be probably worse if you ran and then had a cigarette, for example. But
Uh,
I think it's the same logic with running. It would you logically you may think that okay, I've burned all these calories, I deserve this huge ice cream, but actually it may be worse than if you didn't run because
right,
the
right,
way
right.
your body's trying to recover and it's using too much of certain ingredients that are not going to serve you at that moment.
And that's right. That's exactly right. And you got to understand something too. I love apples. I eat an apple a day. I'm old school. Apple a day keeps the doctor away. I will usually eat an apple, even if it's still in the morning hours. And I say early morning hours, maybe 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning if I finish a swimmer. I usually have an apple in my car when I'm driving back home. I have some hydration. I have something to drink. But I love apples. Apples are a great source of sugar. They're a very healthy
Yeah,
source of sugar. I call
natural.
them. nature's toothbrush because they kind of clean my teeth, but they do jumpstart your metabolism a little bit too. That's part of the sugar in the apple, as well as your other fruits. Your bananas, they have a lot of potassium, they have their
Yeah.
sugar. Your pineapples, they have sugar. These are all really good things to get the right kind of sugar in your diet. Grapes is another good source of sugar, but you got to remember, a grape, you really have to chew and digest a grape so that it doesn't bother your stomach because it's not digested, and that it really is just uncomfortable trying to go through the process of your digestive system. Be careful in how you eat all that. But
Yeah.
Nate's toothbrush, my apple, love it. I eat it post exercising most of the time because I don't want it to continue to jumpstart my metabolism when I've already ignited my metabolism. I want it to start settling down.
Yes, and I'm all for natural. If you can go with natural, I am all for it. I
Mhm.
have a few that mine go to is boiled potato. I used to do
Yes.
those right before the race, just
Mhm.
add some salt and pepper to a boiled potato. But here's a couple of them that other
Okay.
runners have mentioned, and it's homemade energy balls made out of oats, peanut butter, and honey. And
Great
then
protein.
there's
Really.
yes,
Right.
roasted sweet potatoes cut into bite-sized pieces for long runs,
Hmm.
and then dates with a pinch of salt.
Right. Remember that Victor said salt, not sugar.
Yes.
And look, y'all, that's some great suggestions. Remember, too, watch what you're consuming with your dairy products. Milk, yogurt, a lot of that's really, really good for you. A lot of people now will do your nut milks, your almond, your oats, your coconuts, all that. Watch how it affects you if you ingest
Yeah.
it prior to running. You don't
Yeah.
want that full feeling, but milk is a great source of protein, y'all. Just watch when you have it. Okay, that's another big,
Yes.
big thing. And with your natural sugars, what kind of natural sugars would you suggest, Victor? I mean, you got your raw sugar, which is always your best type of sugar if you're going to use some sugar in your cooking or your preparations for things that you're doing for your
Um,
run.
yes. Yeah, I would say that the brown sugars probably, if you're going to
Mhm.
use synthetic sugars, Trivia would be
Yeah,
that's
definitely,
my go-to
definitely.
for sweeteners.
Right, right. I think
And
with
then,
your like your honey and your maple syrup,
yeah,
um,
that would be second.
they have a lot of sugar in them. So y'all, you know, they're natural. There's like a coconut sugar is another example too. Molasses. Just remember when you use these, they're going to be heavier and they'll slowly digest, but they're going to jumpstart things a little quicker too. The biggest
Yeah.
thing is finding your balance and not over using them.
Yes, and nothing new before the race or at the race. I did. We went to Montana to do a race in Montana, and the day before they had a bunch of cherries. You know, the cherries were in
Ooh,
season,
yeah, yes.
and I just wasn't thinking. It's like, oh my God, these cherries look awesome, and I found myself the night before the race eating these cherries. Like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I paid the price. I had to hit the porta potty first thing in the first mile.
You're definitely going to pay the price. And you
Yes.
find that first portal along the route or the tree.
Yes.
I want to
Well,
add one more thing to our viewers, and I know we'll probably start tying up our information here, but we'd love to tell you a little bit more about how the sugar does balance with your electrolytes and your hydration and all that other good stuff. So, two key points to take away today. Make sure that you experiment, as Victor and I have shared with you, on anything new you want to try. Another point would be look at the ingredients of a new product. Make sure that there's stuff that doesn't bother you that you already know is something you don't like to have. And also remember too that when you're looking at your nutrition base and your sugar base, how are you going to eat, the order that you're eating in, but also make sure that you consider the hydration part of your meal plan as well. Okay, we'll hit
yeah.
that on another more intense
Yeah. And
topic.
one thing to add to that uh, is if you know what race you're going to do 6 months from now, whatever you're getting ready for, it's a good idea to research what they're handing out in
Yes.
case you want to use that. And the reason being is that it will allow you not to have to carry your own if you can
Right.
consume what they're handing out, like the Gatorade or the special gels that they're handing out.
Mhm.
If you can handle
Mhm.
those, then it's going to save you money for one,
Yeah.
and
Key
and
point. Key point.
save you carrying it. That's another.
Right. And I think too, for those that are experiencing the longer distances or the longer time in an event, you're going to have a pack with you. You're going to have either a waist belt or something you're carrying that's going to have a few of your energy packs. If you don't have to carry the water bottles, that's fine. I used to use a waist belt that had I could put it on my hip or toward the back. That didn't bother my running motion or didn't kind of knock against my body when I was running those marathons. But the biggest thing that you want to remember is, as Victor said, check out what's there along the race route that might be offered. It might you might not have to carry as much, but also remember, if you've mixed it yourself, you know what's in it, right? If you packed it yourself, you know what's in your pack, you know what's in your drink bottle. Be careful about that as well. Okay, that's another big point that we all learned the hard way.
All right, guys. Thank you, Adele. Thank you for all your input and valuable tips here. And please stay tuned for our other episodes. We're going to bring you lots of more race specific
Yes.
details and tips on how to approach them. So stay tuned for our next episode.
And remember to go to our notes and you can find all the ways to contact us. Please do so. We'd love to help you be successful in what you're trying to do. Pleasure to see you again,
Absolutely.
Victor. Y'all have a
Nice.
great week.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
See you next week.